You too can be part of the cookie crew. Hi bakers, I'm Sally, and today I'm teaching you how to freeze cookie dough. Cookie dough freezes beautifully, and this is such a great way to plan ahead for the holiday baking season, or so you can have a batch of fresh, warm cookies whenever that craving hits. It is so convenient to have a stash of ready-to-bake homemade cookie dough in the freezer, just in case you find yourself in a dessert emergency. Maybe new neighbors just moved in, or a friend just had a baby, or you forgot about the school bake sale until the morning of. Frozen cookie dough to the rescue every time. There are many types of cookies. First, I'm going to show you how to freeze a drop cookie dough, like chocolate chip cookies or oatmeal raisin cookies. This is just my basic chocolate chip cookie dough recipe, and this recipe requires chilling the cookie dough in the refrigerator. So you'll still want to do that before you go ahead and shape it. I'm going to go ahead and shape these cookie dough balls and put them on a lined baking sheet or plate, and make sure the cookie dough balls are not touching. We're going to refrigerate these balls of dough for about 1 hour, just so they can set their shape and so they won't stick together in the freezer. This bowl of dough has chilled in the refrigerator for 2 hours already, so it's not really sticky. You'll notice that I'm not rolling this chocolate chip cookie dough into perfect balls or spheres. They're kind of more like a tall column of sorts, and that's because the taller they are, just the thicker they're going to bake down. So I like to keep them a little odd looking, not that perfect ball that you're used to. This method requires a little more work at the start, but the great thing is that you don't need to thaw this drop cookie dough. You can pop it right in the oven from the freezer, and then you'll have those warm, fresh baked cookies within about 15 minutes. I also love that you don't have to bake the entire batch here. So this is great if you just want like 1 or 2 fresh cookies out of the oven at a time. As soon as you're done, let's go ahead and cover up this tray, and then we'll place them in the refrigerator for about 1 hour so the cookie dough can set its shape. The cookie dough has chilled for about an hour. It has set its shape nicely, so we know that they won't stick together in the freezer. And now it's time to freeze them. And for this, you'll need a freezer-friendly container or a freezer-friendly zip-top bag. Whichever container you're using, make sure you label it with the name of the cookies, the oven temperature, the amount of time the cookie dough needs to bake, and today's date, because the cookie dough should be baked for the best tasting cookies within 3 months. These are my chocolate chip cookies, 325 Fahrenheit. They take between about 12 and 14 minutes. And one thing to note is that when you're baking the dough from frozen, they take about 1 extra minute in the oven. And I'm writing today's date. Now, if it's easier for you because the cookie dough must bake within 3 months, go ahead and write down the date 3 months from now so you know you need to bake those cookies before that day. All right, let's start filling this bag. You want to press down on it, make sure all of that air got out, seal it nice and tight, and they're ready to freeze. If you have a coated drop cookie like Snickerdoodles, the entire method is exactly the same, only you won't coat them in cinnamon sugar until you're ready to bake them. So go ahead and remove them from the freezer, let them sit out for about 30 minutes so the cinnamon sugar can stick, give them a nice coating, and then they're ready to bake. I find that if you coat the Snickerdoodles in cinnamon sugar before freezing, the cinnamon sugar sort of melts into the cookie dough as it thaws and bakes. So I like doing this fresh right before baking. This is the same method you would follow if you were making peanut butter cookies that are coated in granulated sugar, or chocolate crinkle cookies that are coated in powdered sugar. You'll want to coat them right before baking. These are ready to bake. Now for cutout cookie dough that needs to be rolled out and cut into shapes like sugar cookies or gingerbread cookies, it also freezes well, but the process is a little different. Now this is my sugar cookie dough, and I just mixed it together. I'm going to go ahead and divide it in half just because smaller pieces of dough are easier to work with. I'm just eyeballing this. Okay, and we're going to flatten each half into about a 1-inch thick disc. I do the same thing when I make and freeze pie dough. Go ahead and wrap these up tightly. And these freeze well for up to 3 months. These are wrapped nice and tightly, and we'll still want to label them just like we did with the drop cookies. I'm going to use a piece of tape here. And since the process is a little different, for this, I'm only going to write down the name of the cookies and the date. These freeze well for about 3 months. And they're ready to freeze. Because you'll need to roll out that cookie dough, it does need time to thaw. So the day before you knead your cookies, place the discs of dough in the refrigerator, let them thaw overnight, and then go ahead and roll them out while it's cold and cut into shapes. The last type of cookie dough that I want to demonstrate are slice and bake or icebox cookies. Now these are very similar to sugar cookies in that they're very quick and easy to prepare to freeze, and they also need some thaw time before you can slice and bake them. Again, we'll divide this dough in half, just like we did with the sugar cookie dough. And then we will roll each half into a log per your recipe's instructions. A lot of my slice and bake recipes call for about 8-inch logs. If your slice and bake cookie recipe calls for rolling in sprinkles or sugar, you can go ahead and do that now. So I just have a plate of some coarse sugar sprinkles here. I'm gonna roll that log of dough before it's frozen in the sprinkles. Set that aside. Do the same thing with the second piece. Tightly wrap each log, and then just like we did with the sugar cookie dough, we'll want to label them. Just like the other cookie doughs, these freeze well for up to 3 months. On the day you want to bake those cookies, place one or both of the cookie dough logs in the refrigerator and let it thaw overnight until the dough is soft enough to cut with a knife. Then you can slice and bake. Freezing cookie dough is such a great way to plan ahead. You can make the dough when you have the time and simply bake the cookies when you don't. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you feel inspired to try a new baking recipe today. Head over to my website for the full written recipe and all of my success tips. You can also ask a question right there on the recipe page, and my team and I will be happy to answer.